If you notice, these OTT platforms are bringing very nuanced content which maybe only 5% of the people watch. Actually, I failed that video synthesis round, and then I got understood that the point of the video synthesis was not to test your intellect but for your ability to summarize things, abstract things. This is where I learned a lot from the consultants also, who know about the field very much, right? They were very specific and they gave us a lot of ideas on, is this guy going alone? Are they couples? Do they go in groups? You can infer from so much from all this.
Did you know that when you go into a McDonald's, they're already trying to predict what you'll order? And that's not all. Our favorite OTT platforms like Netflix have so much data about us that they can predict what we are going to watch next and hence design their algorithms accordingly. And all of this is because of data science. In today's podcast, we have Anantha Rajpurohit, who is the Associate Director of Data Science at Z Entertainment. He comes from a very humble background and has paved his way and worked at some phenomenal data companies like Mu Sigma, BCG, and now at Z Entertainment. In this podcast, he'll share his journey, we'll discuss some really interesting case studies, and he'll tell us how you can become a phenomenal data scientist. So stay tuned and let's begin. Hi Anant, welcome to Newton School. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, Nishant. Thanks for having me.
We're really great to have you here and actually teach our students what happens in the actual world of data science, in these companies, in the office, right? So that is super helpful to have you here. So let's start from the very, very beginning, from your childhood. Where did you grow up and how did your career into data science start? So some very beginning stuff maybe.
Right. So I've pretty much grown up in Bangalore, right?
That's really nice. You have had this weather all your life. I'm not sure what will happen if you ever went to Delhi or somewhere.
Exactly. And I would say I've had 2 to 3 degrees colder than Bangalore. So I used to live in a central government quarters, which is lush green even today, right? And
really
that's
nice.
one piece of land which is intact. And had a really good upbringing there in terms of, say, sports. We had huge grounds and good environment for studies as well.
So were you a studious student or did you used to play all day, all night?
So I used to be, summer holidays, I used to be in the ground the whole day, right? That kind of a guy. But I think when it comes to studies, I was very inquisitive. Questioning people all the time, sometimes irritate the family members. But then I used to love playing, so I was outdoors most of the times.
So that would give the family members a relief. The kid is out. So were you interested in something like data science from the beginning, or were you interested in particular subjects when you were a kid?
I think I remember I used to be very fascinated by numbers, right? Mathematics, and then gradually physics, because it related to how things work.
Sure.
That were my major interests, and biology and social sciences, like I used to hate. I used to get low marks. Also, I had a very bad drawing and handwriting stuff. So biology on those drawings.
I'm there with you. I have like the worst handwriting ever.
Yeah.
So you were always attracted to mathematics and stuff like that. So tell us about where did you do your undergrad from? How did you go to that place, and what were the thought behind it?
I think being so my journey to undergrad was quite natural, in the sense I did not have big dreams that I'll try to write an IIT JEE or something like that. Being from a lower middle class kind of a family, we were just trying to think of the next best thing,
Sure.
right? And after my 10th standard, where till then I was only into math and all that, and trying to get the maximum possible in 10th standard and so on. And I knew I hated biology, so 11th, 12th, I ended up not taking biology, which means I took electronics. And just because I took electronics, I wanted the electronics in undergrad. But I think I found some good guidance from one of my friend's elder brothers, who said, try to get into this college, UVC. It's built by Vishwesvaraya and one of the oldest colleges in South India, Bangalore University, and majorly because it's a government college and it would help me minimize the fee.
Sure.
right? And it has amazing placements.
Sure.
So I couldn't get electronics there. I got into electrical engineering, which I went through quite diligently, apart from all the sports and fun in the college.
That's great. You actually were from a middle class background where you didn't have exposure to fancy things such as data science, and today you're a data scientist who has worked in multiple industries and at a quite a senior position in one of the biggest companies in India. So how did your college go, and how did your first exposure to data science come about?
I was in the mindset that, you know, I've now taken up electrical and electronics, so I'll have to do something within that.
Sure.
So we used to do, I think, some bit of research and try to get into companies like ABB and, you know, Schneider and all that. And when the placement season started, a lot of software companies started coming. A lot more software companies than the core companies. And, you know, I had a couple of offers in these mass recruiters. But then Mu Sigma was one slightly different company. They had like math puzzles and group discussions, which was very different. And they even had something called as video synthesis. They would show a movie clip and they would say, what did you learn from this? So that sounded really interesting.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I wish in my college someone came to us and in the interview showed us movie clips. That would have been
exactly.
great.
So that happened, right? And I somehow, actually I failed that video synthesis round. And then I got understood that the point of the video synthesis was not to test your intellect, but your way, for your ability to summarize things,
Sure.
Abstract things. So I went out and attended it again in an off-campus, pool campus, and I got into Mu Sigma. So that is one offer I had. And then I started learning about it. They used to market that it is the coolest job in the 21st century, etc., etc. But in parallel, I had already started preparing for a GATE, that is an exam to get into masters in India. And I had a pretty decent rank, I would say, triple digits. And then I went and attended multiple interviews at IITs. IIT Bombay, I got in to the energy systems field, which is all about the photovoltaics, renewable energy that you see today. And I think that field is booming as well. So I had like two paths to choose. One, you know, definitely it has to boom because we are running out of fossil fuels. And the other, I've been hearing some hype. So I was right there trying to decide.
So I can imagine 10 years earlier, you were standing going to IIT Bombay, the premier institute in India, or picking up a data science field, right? And which was back then just growing and just starting off. How did you make that decision? It would have been very difficult for me to make that decision.
I spoke to many people, but then again, I think at the end, it was also my gut, and, you know, I had to finalize something. Financial reasons also helped me. We had to either secure the seat and do some things in advance. Then I thought, let me take the job, right? And by then I had researched a bit on the data science field, so that interested me quite a bit.
No, that's pretty interesting. So obviously a lot of the learners who are interested in data science also want to understand how it is like going into a company. So your first job was at Mu Sigma, one of the premier data science companies in India. Can you tell us a bit more about what do they do? And then we'll talk about how was your experience going into it.
I think they call themselves a pure play decision sciences company because data is to make decisions, is what they say.
That's very interesting. They don't call themselves data science company. They call themselves decision science company.
Exactly.
That's phenomenal.
Exactly. So, and I think the founder has that kind of a philosophy that it's for decisions. So they call themselves pure play. The reason it's pure play is they do only data science, decision science. And they help clients identify problems, conceptualize, solve them, and deploy them. I think all through the life cycle, they are there.
And you were telling me earlier that, I mean, data science or decision science is so important that even back then, they were the first profitable unicorn in India. I mean, one of the only ones,
That's right. I think, again, as my memory serves me, I think Yeah, they were one of the initial unicorns and only one profitable. I joined in 2013. So that's as far as I remember. Now I think we have more, maybe Zerodha, and I'm not sure what else. But definitely, so that was an excitement point as well for me.
So that was a big learning for me, that one of the first unicorns from India is actually a data science company, which is actually profitable unicorn is a data science company. That's great to learn. So how was it like going in the first day, the first week, the first month? What's your vibe of the place? How did you feel there?
So I still remember, I think I reached like 5 minutes late on my first day and like all scared. But then I realized so many people, I think around 80 people joined on the same day.
Okay.
So they hire quite a bit of, and they've produced more than 10,000 people into the industry.
That's
who've
phenomenal.
been in Music Man then gone out. So they rely on raw talent, and they're then nurturing the talent.
Yeah, and as you were also telling me that Music Ma is considered, going to Music Ma is like doing masters in sort of data science.
Right. I'll get to that. So I think that was around the time when I was deciding whether to go into IIT Bombay or not. And again, a great guidance that I got was that maybe this is a new field as well. There were no courses on data science, by the way.
Sure.
Forget BTech in data science. There was hardly any masters in data science in India. People used to go to US to do that. So somebody told me that you have to consider this as your masters. Don't think about a lot about money for 2-3 years.
Sure.
And that's what I did, and it's helped me there.
Sure. And can you talk about a few interesting case studies that you've come across working at Mu Sigma, and otherwise the McDonald's one that you're talking about, and a bunch of others?
This one is when I was in college, right? So they were introducing their company and they were asking all sorts of questions. They had like an open-ended slide, and they were like, can you figure out which customer will have what kind of a burger at what time of the day, and how many people will come in, and who has a what kind of preference. And for me, that was like, oh, you can actually learn all this using data.
So it's so interesting that they think that deep. I was, as a kid, a fan of McDonald's. Now I'm getting a bit older, but Mac Aloo Tikki was my favorite back then.
Right.
But I'm just imagining someone going into data that Nishant ko, next time he comes into the McDonald's, let's serve him this.
Right.
That's pretty fascinating.
Right. So as a student, even that caught my eye. But I think as I joined the company, I've worked across, I think by the end of it, retail, banking, even industrial fields. And in Mu Sigma, I spent like first 1.5-2 years being in retail, specifically home improvement retail. There is no such concept in India now. It's coming, right? You can rent tools to improve your home. You can buy a lot of materials to build homes, all that. And I worked across expense management and shrinkage, which is like, your store has 100 items and 2 of them magically disappear, right? Why do they disappear? So you have to find out all that.
You are actually catching thieves.
Right? It could be because of damage, it could be theft.
Sure.
So we built a model to predict that, etc. I had a humble beginnings in terms of, I remember still my first week of joining that account, I was asked to do data entry.
Okay.
Right? And there were like thousands of TXT files, and they were like, we want it in a structured format, and we need it in a couple of days. Right? And I think the automation script was failing or something happened. But then I took it up. I was like total out of college. And that's one learning I've had. Since then, I've always taken up what comes and how can I add value.
Sure.
I started with visualization in Tableau, just building dashboards.
That's
and
nice.
It gave me one side effect was that I understood why the business is looking at certain numbers. How do we grab the story out of it? How do we take the implications before I got to the algorithm side of things?
So from the early stage, you actually started figuring out what the business needs and why,
Exactly.
more than the exact tools or how to use those tools. That's pretty fascinating. And so just to conclude your Mu Sigma journey, are there any learnings, remaining learnings that you would like to share with us?
Yeah, I just spoke about the initial days and the technical learnings. But I think over time, I stayed there for 5 years. The 3-year plan ended up being 5. But as I grew more, I think there were a lot more responsibilities in terms of client relationship management, actually delivering what we promise, managing teams and their expectations and their upskilling. So that was a very interesting phase as well.
So that concludes your first phase of being a data scientist at Mu Sigma. And then you go into a very interesting journey at BCG, which is one of the biggest consulting firm across the world. So how did you actually encounter BCG? What was the thought of going there? And how did it all come about?
I think I had gotten into 1 or 2 companies. I was in that process, and that's when I got a referral into BCG, and they were opening a new branch in Bangalore. It's called BCG Gamma, the division of analytics, and they had it in Gurgaon. They were trying to open another one in Bangalore. They had already opened. It was like just very few months, and I was one of the initial hires there. So that referral helped, and then there were multiple round interviews, case studies, and
And was your family okay with you with leaving a settled job and moving into a new job and so on and so forth?
I think so. It was a long duration. I think 5 years is good enough.
Sure.
And BCG was a very big brand as well.
Yes, that's true.
So it was an obvious decision.
I'm sure the family would be pretty happy that you're growing in your career. So how was BCG different from Mu Sigma? What were the cultural differences, or in general, how do they operate? How was it different?
The major difference, if you see, is Mu Sigma is a services company. Practically, right? No matter how you position it, BCG is a consulting company. The main difference is consultants. And we have a bunch of consultants who are pure play consultants. They
Sure.
are not data scientists, they are not software engineers, but their work is strategy, their work is implementation, right?
Sure.
So they promise some outcome, they achieve the outcome. If
Sure.
they tell you that they will increase your company's sales by X, they have to increase by X.
Sure.
Versus Mu Sigma providing an analytics solution.
Sure.
Right? That's the fundamental difference.
How was the difference in cultures? When did you have to go to office? Because now you're working with clients. And what kind of projects were you working on? If you could give a broad overview.
Right. I think that's a great segue from the point I mentioned. Because their natures were different, in Mu Sigma, I had somebody on site in US or in other client site, and we majorly work with US and European clients,
Sure.
at least my career. And we used to deliver from here. But in BCG, most of the things until COVID hit used to be in person.
Okay.
So I have pretty much spent a couple of years always being on the client side, taking flights every week.
So you have to go to the client every week and then come back every week?
Yeah, my schedule is more like morning, I wake up at 3 a.m.
3 a.m.
3 a.m. on Monday, right? And this is not Monday morning blues, this is something else, I guess. So I would wake up at 3 a.m. and, get ready, get into a cab by 4:30, go through your security checking process at the airport. So roughly, I used to take the 7 a.m. flight every Monday. And we used to be at the Delhi, Mumbai, or anywhere else where the client was there at their office by maybe 10:30.
Oh, the same day you were
Same day.
traveling from a different city to a different city to be in the client's office. So for those who want to travel a lot, and I'm assuming all of this is paid by the company.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's great for you. You're taking flights to multiple major cities in India across the journey.
That's right. I think at the stage I was in, this was a very exciting journey. And so Monday to Friday, we stayed there. Friday evening, again, take a flight back and reach home by 1:30 a.m. So the weekends seemed a bit short. But yeah, I think that was the phase when I really focused on building my career.
And how were the projects like? How was the interaction with clients like? Are there any stories of working with clients that you remember?
I think I remember one cinema chain with which I worked. It was primarily around recommender systems and personalization, right? Like how can you, so if I put it simply, you go watch movies, right? And next big movie is releasing. Should I send an offer to Nishant or not? Right? And how much offer should I send?
Okay.
If you are anyway interested in the movie, why should I give you a discount? I will probably remind you, right?
Okay.
What kind of people will be interested in what kind of movies? When should I remind them? So that my footfall increases. Footfall meaning more people coming into.
So
the
you
cinemas.
won't give me a discount for a John Wick which I want to see, but maybe for a Mission Impossible which I maybe want to see or something
exactly,
like that.
if you're dicey, right? And a lot of thought got into it, and this is where I learned a lot from the consultants also, who know about the field very much, right? They were very specific, and they gave us a lot of ideas on, okay, is this guy going alone? Are they couples? Do they go in groups? Do they watch on weekdays or weekends? Do they prefer evenings? Do they book recliner seats all the time, which is costly? Are they students? You can infer from so much from all this.
That's a lot of information. I never thought for me going to cinema is just a relaxing event, but such a big machinery is working inside. So guys, if you're actually getting a lot of discounts or not getting a discount from your favorite app to book movies, maybe this guy has some hand to play in that. Can you also tell us about how the ideas or the solutions that we generate actually get implemented in the real world?
Right, and I think I'll continue with the same case study, right? This is where I had an experience of working very closely, and that was a time when it was a crunch situation and everybody was busy, consultants were overworked. So I had taken a little bit of an extra responsibility. I used to walk up to the campaign management team within the client location. And after I have sent the email, it's not as easy as you send an email and everything gets done. Sometimes you have to push people.
Sure.
So I have to walk up to them. I had to say that, is this format okay? These are the number of customers you have to target this week. I think I've even written some sort of statements for the creatives also, that these are the terms and conditions.
So you were like really hands down into implementing the solution with the teams.
Right.
No, so that is going to be pretty exciting because everyone wants to see their solutions implemented, not just like stayed in a file somewhere in the corner. So that's actually a pretty good experience for data scientists to have. So that's really nice. So in BCG, you also worked on an education initiative that was ongoing. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Right. So I think during the last year of my stay at BCG, I was part of an initiative to upskill Singapore citizens, and whatever I'm saying is quite public. You can look it up on LinkedIn, and in fact it's marketed a lot more because we want to reach a lot more citizens of Singapore.
That's a phenomenal initiative, I think.
Yeah.
And so how was the system designed? What did you guys keep in mind while designing a system to educate others?
I think when I got in, the design was already there. In fact, it was the course was running. But from what I see, it was designed for the mid-career professionals. Especially during COVID, a lot of people started losing jobs. So these guys who were in a non-technical, non-digital role, they could now pivot to digital roles like digital marketing, data science, business analytics, and so on.
So Anant, considering that you've also been an integral part of one of the teaching campaigns within BCG, so what are your views on the current education system in India? What do you feel is broken and how should we actually improve it?
I think I briefly mentioned that, I used to not study too many hours, but I was inquisitive. I think that side of things has to be encouraged quite a bit more. Especially in schooling, we have that one size fits all solution,
Sure.
one pace, you'll get punishment if you are not finishing the same things at the same time, etc. I think that's where kind of we have some sort of things broken. And there are, I think, exceptions. There are some schools who don't even have exams till 10th standard. They let you learn at your own pace.
Well, that's actually phenomenal. I mean, I would love to be part of somewhere where I could actually do what I want, not what some teacher says that it is important.
Rarely exceptions. And I think the edtech industry is doing a lot more favor in those terms, right? Obviously, you would have heard some things in the news that, some sales, practices or some negative things, but I think they are just a blip in the entire game. But I feel very positive about the edtech catching up, starting with, say, Khan Academy, which is free, versus, but it's not as personalized and not for everybody, right? But there are edtech players who are providing very impactful solutions. I feel this is changing the game, right? Especially for the adults, right? Once you are into a certain industry, you want to pivot, you want to do like data science.
Sure.
It's really going to help. And the aspects I feel, and again, to answer your question, some of the things that edtech platforms are doing, we should bring in our education system, which is self-paced learning, coaching rather than just forcing content through somebody's throat.
That's very true.
Right? Yeah.
And now comes a pretty interesting part, a data scientist going into the entertainment industry. So you are now part of the Z Group, and would love to understand from you, first of all, what does Z Group do? We all know about it, but some introduction from your side. And what do you do there?
I'm sure most of the viewers will already know that Z is one of the major media players in India.
Sure.
And they are very different from your Netflix or a Prime in the sense that they are traditional television media company, now venturing into OTT as well, which is over the top, as we call it, right? And they are number one in Karnataka, by the way.
Oh, that's
Z Kannada is number one.
Yeah. So just a side question, do they know if I'm watching a particular serial or my mother is watching a particular serial? Do they know that, or is it like
the distinction between the linear, we call the television side as linear, because the telecast comes linearly.
Sure.
You can't go back and forth.
Sure.
There, I don't think you can capture any personal information. It's done by a central body called BARC. They capture data. It's survey based as well. So they provide TV ratings. You might have heard of TV ratings.
Sure.
So that is where we get it, and we get it by various cuts, like various regions, various channels, etc.
Sure.
But not really at this level. But when you come to OTT, right, be it Netflix, Z, anyone, every user has an activity. Just like in retail, you will be able to track.
Sure. And what are some of the use cases in entertainment that a data scientist can work on currently and in the future? What are some interesting projects that someone like you works on?
I think if you look at Netflix, right, and again I'm going back to Netflix because they started the revolution much
Sure.
before. They've cracked majorly two things, at least as far as my knowledge goes. One is recommendation, personalization. Every single person's Netflix screen looks different. Right?
That's true. And that's not usual for products before Netflix came onto the picture.
Exactly, right? And that is one problem, which is what do you watch, how much do you watch, what do people like you watch, not just what you watch, right? What do people like you watch, etc.
So there are a million more Nishants in India and abroad who are watching something.
Exactly.
And because they're watching, I'm benefiting because I'm getting the best recommendation.
That's right. And maybe we have 4 movies in common, and the 5th one you have not watched, I have watched. So there is a relationship that is built, right?
So thank you, anonymous Nishants across the world, for recommending me some of the best movies on Netflix and other platforms. Any other type of projects that you can think of in the entertainment industry in the future?
Yeah, definitely. I think even currently, like that is one that they have cracked. The other, which OTT players are cracking much more, but I think it has potential for others also, which is what content to build. If you notice, these OTT platforms are bringing very nuanced content, which maybe only 5% of the people watch, but
True.
it is still significant. 5% of the world is significant, but you cannot do it on theaters because you can't have 5 seats filled out of 100 seats in theaters. But at home, it's okay to have 5% viewership, which is significant. So they are using data science to build future prospects of what kind of stories, what kind of storylines, themes will work in what markets.
Okay, so even storylines is now benefiting from data science and actually creating these niches.
Right. Right.
No, and in person, even I have seen the Indian OTT industry evolve, because earlier that things were not, but I was particularly maybe not interested in. But now I see that more and more niche things are being made, and that is because we can actually capture the data of people who are watching these things and figure out what even a 5% people would like to watch. So that's fascinating, and I feel in the next 3-4 years we'll get more of the things that we like really much.
Right.
So Ananth, you have worked in so different industries, a service-based industry and a consulting firm and a independent company which is based out of India. So what are the similarities and differences do you see working across these different segments?
I would say a lot of things are similar because running a business is all about running a business. So it would be the same. So let me take an example, right? For any business, you need customers, right? They are the ones who will pay for it, etc.
Sure.
So if you have a problem of how do I make the customers use my service,
Sure.
it can be a media service, telecommunication service, a retail product,
Sure.
right? The problem is the same. How do I make them stick with me? That's the same problem, right? On the customer side. Even on the marketing side, how do I market? Who do I reach out to? What channel do I use? Should I send an SMS? Do people even read emails today? Right? All these. And I'm not covering everything, but if you take operations also for that reason, right? So the HR function that you're running, how good is your company running? So some of the internal things as well. So these are very common to begin with. The second aspect is not just the commonality, but then there are regulatory aspects.
Sure.
Right? Which is some industries can go to a certain extent, the other industries cannot.
Sure.
Right? Let's say I'm a retail company, I am trying to target somebody with an offer. I will give you 50% off on a phone. I will not give that offer to somebody else, right? It may look discriminatory, but then, that is a way to maximize scales.
Sure.
Whereas if you're somebody, say you have applied for a loan, I have also applied for a loan, yours get rejected and mine gets accepted. Even though the bank is a private bank, they can't randomly reject people's loans. If they have a data science intelligence, even though, and by the way, I have built a couple of them when I was in BCG. One model to say whether a loan should be accepted or not. Another model to say who will miss their EMI next month.
So data science models are like super powerful. You guys are figuring out who gets a loan or not and who we can recover from or not, right? Sorry, you were continuing your thought.
No, that's right. But to come back to that point, right? We have that in place, but you can't build a black box, magic box, which just gives you output saying don't give loans.
Sure.
So there is a government regulation, RBI, everybody is there. So you have to provide a proper reason.
Sure.
This person has low score because he's defaulted in the past,
Sure.
right? So there are that kind of differences. And some differences come in because of the nature of the business. Like I said, media, you have television, the way the data flows is different.
Sure.
And you get to access your competitors' television ratings as well.
Oh, that's phenomenal. I could see what a Star Plus or a Sony is saying, and I can get all the data on what shows are working well for them.
That's right. Maybe not every bit of metadata which
Sure.
they will hold, but
Sure.
whatever is centrally available, that okay, 7:30 they are telecasting some show, and what is the rating yesterday versus my rating.
Sure.
So that's a different angle. You can't get that in retail.
Sure.
Right?
So we talked about some regulatory challenges and all, and I think they are in place for a reason, for a good reason, right?
Correct.
That, as you said, it shouldn't be a black box. We should know why we are following the data. We should not follow the data blindly, right? So that's a very important aspect. So we took flavors of different industries, and thank you for telling some anecdotes from each of those there. So if we talk about people who want to enter the data science field, would you recommend people to come into data science? Is this a good field? Is this an attractive field? And are there the salaries are decent, going up, going down? What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, tough question. So, see, firstly, I would, that's my personal opinion. I would encourage everybody to question a little bit, see where their interest lies, right?
Sure.
Like we started by saying, I like math and, all that journey. But if you are somebody who loves social sciences, history, maybe this is not the field. But coming to the question, which is, about the field itself, I think it is definitely booming, and the same fascination that was there when I was beginning my career, I think it continues to grow. And you might have noticed in the last 3-4 months, the OpenAI, ChatGPT, it's doing unbelievable things, right? So I think the field will definitely grow. That ChatGPT apart, even basic data science analytics, literacy on data science will be necessary and not an option going forward. And I think just to cover the last part of it, which is the salary and career prospects, I would say you have to make, and I'll keep it real, right? You have to make yourself a sought after talent in the industry, right? Which means you have to get your basics right, you have to learn well, you have to be impactful and add value. And it is true in any industry, but given this is a booming field, if you do it right, I think it has a good future.
So make yourself important, right? Make yourself valuable to the team members and you'll go very, very far. So for people who are actually interested in entering data science as a field, would you have some advice on where they should start, how they should, what strategic things they should do, what tactical things they should do?
Firstly, I would say strategically, you should start thinking about what kind of a data scientist will you be, research a little bit, because I see them as a combination of multiple skills, right? You have your coding and tool related skills. You have your mathematics or statistics. If you know statistics, we don't do it on pen and paper, so you need the programming. And you have to apply these two to something, which is the business domain knowledge, right? So I would say strategize in some way that which one will be more suitable to you, and based on that, there are very different roles. You could be into product building where coding is major, and then you have some algorithms.
Sure.
You could be somebody who's building more intelligent systems. You could be somebody who's a bridge between data science and the business, right? But these three will still stay. And irrespective of where you get interested in the future, you should be trying to get the basics right. Something like a SQL and a Python for programming, maybe a Tableau or one of the visualization tools. Statistics, I would say, get the basics right.
Sure.
But it's always best to learn from somebody who's good at it, unofficial or official, do some courses, right? And business, I think it's slightly tougher one. But one definite way, before you get any experience or exposure, one definite way to learn is reading through a lot of case studies, following the news.
Sure.
Say, for example, Ola entered the industry of EV. How did they enter? What all are they doing? How are they manufacturing versus taking it from outside of India?
Sure.
Things like that.
And do you, for these case studies and absorbing more information, do you just Google or do you follow anything or something like that on LinkedIn or any other social media platform?
That's a good question. So I would say it's a combination of many, right? Nowadays there are a lot of YouTube channels as well, which give you specific business case studies of various industries. Like, for example, how did X company become number one in the last 5 years, right? But then there are blogs and articles, etc. Something like an Analytics Vidya, KD Nuggets. They don't just cater to the technical aspects, but sometimes they have the actual business aspects. And I would also encourage, if you're really into data science and solution building, to look at the Kaggle, for example. You don't need to build anything from scratch. Even if you look at how people have solved things, what is the problem that triggered it, you will have a lot of learning.
No, that was super, super helpful. And any last parting advice in 1 or 2 lines for any aspiring data scientists out there?
Like I said, point one, first get the clarity. What is it that you like doing? Because if you don't like, I've seen colleagues, you will struggle. You have to like it. Second, I would say focus on building the bricks and not the wall, right? Make sure your brick is correct. Take things slowly, one by one. When I say slowly, it doesn't mean waste time, but if you're doing Python, make sure you know many aspects of it. How is it used? What is statistics, hypothesis testing, etc. Don't be all over the place. Don't go by the fad that, okay, ChatGPT has come now, I will do that also. Deep learning has come, I will learn that also. I think go step by step, right? And finally, I would say start being inquisitive in general, right? Question why something happens, why not this? That will bring a lot of structured thinking in the way you do things, and that's a major underrated skill in data science today.
No, thank you. Thank you for taking the time out. That's really valuable advice. Thanks, Anant.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Now, that was a phenomenal conversation. I learned a lot of interesting things from Anant, and I hope you gained some valuable insights as well. So comment below to tell us what topics would you like us to cover next. And don't forget to subscribe the Newton School channel. I'll see you in the next video.